Welcome to Fish Aquarium.
Hi, I'm Lily, and I'm here to talk about our freshwater department. Okay, this is what we call the bee wall. We keep most of our live bears over here, so that's going to be your mollies, platies, guppies, swordtails, and variotis. Some of these can interbreed. They're called live bears because they do have live young. They breed fairly quickly and fairly often. Great beginner fish, great community fish for the most part. Mollies can be a bit more aggressive, but guppies and platies are fairly docile. The guppies get nice bright colors in the males, where females tend to be a little bit more dull.
So, you want to get a betta fish. There are many different types of betta fish out there. They all generally have the same care. They are mostly just cosmetic differences in betta fish that some people might pay higher for, so that's why you see that there might be different prices for different types of bettas, just depending on the quality, the color, the fin shape, stuff like that. The most common that we will have here are going to primarily be the common bettas, the crown-tail bettas, and the half-moon bettas. So I can go over each one and tell you and show you what makes that type of fish that type of fish. So let's start with the common betta. Let's see if we can get a picture of him in there. There we go. So you can see that his fins are long, they're colorful, they're really pretty, but there's not much shape to them. It's almost like you just grabbed the fin and kind of just like stretched it out a little bit. So that is going to be the most common, obviously, given the name. The next up in price and rarity, and I should say rarity because they're extremely common, just like the commons, but they're the crown-tail bettas. So crown-tail bettas look like they almost got like tentacles or spikes coming out of their fins. Come on, buddy. Come in front of the camera. There you go. I don't know if you can see that. You can see how his fins all are like serrated and stick out really nice and long. So those are the crown-tails. And then the next up in price and rarity, again, these aren't very rare, but they are more expensive than the regular commons. These are the half-moon bettas. So half-moon bettas have a nice big round tail and fins that kind of make like a big half-moon, but they're shaped, the rest of the fins in their bodies. So those are the most common types of bettas that we will have in. These are all examples of male bettas. You can get female bettas of each of these varieties. I actually have a female half-moon right here. So female bettas usually still have really nice colors. It's normally that their fins are just shorter. They also get a little bit rounder. Female bettas are really cool because they actually can be kept fairly easily with other fish without too much issue. They're normally not that aggressive. They're also a lot more active. Betta fish in the wild don't have these super long fins like all these guys do. So with those extra fins, it makes it harder for them to move around. But say a fish that has, you know, regular fins, like something like this little female here, she can move around just fine without putting too much effort in. So the first thing in starting a betta tank is obviously gathering materials. So in front of us we have a variety of different things that are going to help us not only make a suitable habitat and home for your new fish, they're also going to sustain plant life and just make the tank look pretty in general. Obviously that's one of the most important parts of having a fish tank, I feel, is, you know, having something that looks nice. So as for actual materials that are going to create the habitat itself, we have the Seapora 10 by 10 by 10 cube. This tank is about 5 gallons, just a little bit less. The larger you can go with a fish tank, the easier it's going to be no matter what you're doing, but bettas are no exception to that. Along with that, we also have a heater. This is the Fluval P25 25 watt heater. There are a million different heaters you can go with. I chose this one for this build or this project just because it's easy. It's also very high quality. Fluval makes great stuff. It's going to keep the tank about 78 degrees. Bettas, you know, can go anywhere from about 74 up to about 82, but usually you want to shoot somewhere in the middle, and this is a great little preset heater that will help keep that tank at that temperature. As for filtration, yes, you should have filtration on your betta tanks. Without filtration, you are likely to have ammonia buildup, and ammonia buildup is a dead fish. So this is the ReptiClear 250. This is actually more of a reptile filter than anything else. But honestly, a filter is a filter. This is a little internal one. So you will take it out of the box, like so, and you can just stick it somewhere in the inside of your tank. And we can go over that later, or I can show you how I placed it once we have this all set up. So that is that for the heater and the filter. As for a light, I chose the Humane Aquarium light. This is specifically for planted aquariums. If you want to do live plants, it's always a good idea to invest wisely in a decent light. With this tank and what we're doing, I plan on just doing simple low light plants that don't need a whole lot of nutrients or anything extra crazy like that. So this will do fine for that. And then as for things that are going to make the tank pretty, we have, again, this is another reptile product, but it is essentially just a sand. This is a higher quality sand that isn't super fine. The finer sand you get, it can lead to issues with clogging your filter and making your water cloudy, all that kind of stuff. But this is the sand I chose because I'm a personal fan of sand, even if it is a little bit more work. Then as for actual decorations, we have some Mariposa. This is a really, really cool greenish rock. It's almost got like a crystallish sheen to it. And then to go along with that and accent it, we've got some Mopani driftwood. I do plan on covering these with plants. I will go over the plants I've chosen in just a moment. All right, now that we have our betta tank set up and we have our fish in there and we've got plants and everything, we're gonna pretend that it's been set up for like 2 months now. It's time to learn how to do maintenance on your tank. Because believe it or not, you cannot just set up a fish tank and just let it go. You have to actually do some work every now and then to keep it going. So I'd say on the daily maintenance, you want to make sure that you aren't leaving your light on too long. 1, fish sleep. So you don't want to, have a light on them super bright all the time. 2, you want to make sure that if you have too much light, you can have algae issues. I'm not sure if you guys know what algae is, but it's basically like a slime. It's really gross stuff. It's like gross stuff growing all over your rocks and your plants and stuff like that. So to keep algae and other issues down, you want to make sure that you're running your light for usually 6 to 8 hours a day. The fish don't really need it. But we like the light because that means we can see our fish and everything in the tank, and the plants that we have also like light. But too much light can definitely be a bad thing. So run your light, 6 to 8 hours a day. That's going to be number 1, just to get a healthy light cycle for your fish and your plants. The other thing is you're going to have to feed your fish. So with betta fish, they are very small. They don't eat a whole lot. We sell betta pellets. They are basically just like, I don't know if you can see that, just a tiny little pellet, and they only need 1 of these a day. So we can go ahead and feed her, see if she'll find it. No, she'll find it in there eventually. They're pretty good about finding food. But that brings you to another thing. If you see that you're putting food in and it's not being eaten, you're feeding too much. If you feed too much, you can create a buildup of toxins that is going to either harm or kill your fish. You only want to get them enough food that they're going to eat. And like I said, with the betta fish, it's not very much. So you'll need like a little pinch of food once a day. Even then, you can feed less than that. Do it like once every other day, something like that. They don't need to eat every day like we do, but it could definitely be beneficial to feed them every day. Along with feeding and just light cycles and all that stuff, about once a week you are going to want to do a water change. So basically what happens is, even though you have a filter in here and you have plants, there are still toxins that are going to build up over time that are going to harm your fish if you don't get rid of them. So what you do is you do a water change. And you never want to do an entire water change because there's a lot of biological activity going on with microscopic things that you can't see. You know how there are germs? Well, there are good germs, and they live in our fish tanks. And if you completely reset your fish tank every time you clean it, you're going to kill a lot of those good germs that you need off. So when you say a water change, it usually means partial, anywhere from about 25 to 50% of your tank. So what I always do to figure out how much water I'm going to take out, I'm going to go to the top of my tank, I'm going to find the middle of it, and then I'm going to find the middle of that, and that's about how much water you're going to change out every week. Changing out water is very, very easy. We sell these things called siphons. These are Python brand siphons. They are very, very easy to use. You might be looking at it like, how is he going to suck a bunch of water out with just a tube? Well, what you do is you have a bucket under your tank, and you take your siphon, and you put it in, and you let it fill up like that. And now, when you pull it out of the water, water is going to slowly go down in there. Once it reaches the bottom near the green cap, you just fill it up again. And if I did this right, which it, well, let's try that again. I don't think that worked that time. So, fill her up, lift her out, wait till she goes down, put her back in, and then, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's definitely water flowing into my bucket. So while you're draining the water, you also want to make sure that you're vacuuming up the gravel bed or the bottom of your tank, because a lot of fish poop or food and other stuff that just kind of accumulates will really kind of hang out on the bottom. So you just want to lightly go across and just kind of vacuum, just like you're cleaning your room. Depending on what kind of stuff you have in the bottom, if you have sand or if you have rocks, you might have to be a little more careful if you have sand, because you don't want to suck up all your sand. But yeah, that is about it. So you just want to do that, drain it. And this is a brand new tank. So we're going to pretend that I took 25% of the water out. We're just going to call that good now that you guys know how to start your siphons. So now you have water that you have to add to your tank. Depending on where you live and if you have city water or well water, you might need water conditioner. Our go-to here at Bluefish is called Prime by SeaChem. This stuff is basically going to make tap water safe for fish. While tap water is safe to us, there are things put into the water that are made to kill off bad germs and other bad things that could make us sick. But they can also kill off the good things that are in our tank. So you want to add just a little bit of this to your water before you add it back to the tank. Depending on the size of your tank is going to depend how much you use. But if you use too much, not usually a bad, like a super bad thing. This chemical is very, very safe, especially if you overdose it. You should not have to worry about killing anything if you put too much in. But at the same time, it doesn't take a lot. You want to put about a drop of this per gallon of new water. Along with that, you want to make sure your water is about the same temperature as the tank water. You don't want to put in really, really hot water, and you don't want to put in any really, really cold water. I have already mixed all this stuff up, so I got my bucket right here, and let me grab a cup real quick. You can fill your tank however you like, but personally I like to use a cup and to kind of put my hand over it so that way it doesn't stir up all the sand. So you just gotta fill it back up. And like I said earlier, you want to do this about once a week. Not only is there bad stuff that can accumulate through fish waste, there's also microelements and micronutrients and stuff like that that are usually in such small doses, in such small quantities in your fish tank and in your water that they don't pose a threat. But if you don't do your water changes over time, like years down the line, if you still have your fish, which you very well could, you can run into issues that kind of almost show up out of nowhere. And they're kind of hard to figure out what's going on with your tank because there are elements and other nutrients and stuff like that that normally aren't a big deal in fish tanks. The best way to keep a fish tank going right and going smoothly and keep everything in your tank happy and to keep you happy is to stay up on your weekly maintenance, doing your water changes, make sure you're not feeding too much, and just make sure you don't throw a bunch of light on there that you don't need to.
Hey y'all, my name's Damon. I'm going to show you around the reptile department a little bit. We'll be going over our redfoot tortoises. Now we have 2 males in here and 2 females. Normally males can't go together very well, but these 2 grew up together at a different family. Unfortunately they had to give them up at some point a little bit under a year ago. So this one here, this is Adam, this is Steve, and then our females are Sophie and Sally. So these 2 right here, they're about 10 years old, and then Sophie and Sal are 16 and 17. And they can live for quite a long time yet. In some cases they can live to be over 75 years. So they like to eat lots of greens, other vegetables, fruits, and on top of that they actually make up about 30% of their diet in the wild from like decaying animal matter. So if like a bird died and didn't make it, unfortunately, they would come by and they would clean up. Their scavengers, so they like that extra protein. And they like pretty large spaces. This is a little bit small for all 4 of them, but fortunately we have a separate enclosure for the males. So we recommend a 5x4 enclosure at least, so that'll give them ample room to move around. So they're also going to need UVB lighting on top of their regular heat. So their heat's going to need to be about 85 to 90 degrees on their hottest point, and on the cool end you're going to want it to cool down to about 70 to 75, and then high humidity, very high humidity, and that's where this fogger comes into play. Now here in Michigan we don't have super high humidity here. These guys like to have between about 70 and 80% at the minimum for their humidity levels. So this really helps get enough humidity down to them, really makes the air nice and wet, so that keeps them nice and happy. And if the humidity does unfortunately drop too low, they can develop respiratory infections and other types of issues as well. So it's very important for them to have this fogger here. And they come from a couple different areas in South America. They kind of range from Panama all the way to Argentina, and there's a couple different species of them. There's like yellowfoot tortoises that are a side species to them, and then there's like cherry heads, which Sophie right here is, if you can see on the difference, she's much more red right here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to poke you. Then Sal over here, Sally, you can see that Sally's a lot more yellow rather than red. So there's a few different distinguishments there on the different species and morphs. So, but that's about all. Today I will be putting together a crested gecko kit and all of their needs for you. So first off, I'll be starting off with their enclosure. This is a 12x12 by 18 Exoterra. It has ample space for 2 young crested geckos or 1 full-grown crested gecko. If you plan on doing more, I definitely recommend bumping up the size to a 18 by 18 by 24 or something along that lines, if you wanted to have more than 2 for sure. So you can have as many as you'd like in an enclosure as long as there's space for them. Just make sure that you only have 1 male per tank, otherwise you'll have some aggression issues and you could end up losing another male. Moving on to their food. This is a Pangea diet. This is for growth and breeding. This is one of our male breeders here. It's a powder that you mix with water, and then you put it into a dish that you hang up. This is made by Exoterra here. This is a canopy combo dish. So as you can see, there's room for water here and room for the food in this hole right here as well. And Pangea also makes one as well. It's a magnetic feeding ledge. That's also a very good option. Pangea makes a lot of great products for the crested geckos. Moving on is going to be their decorations. These guys are very easy to take care of. They don't need a lot of requirements. But moving on, this is going to be a hanging vine for them. Now this is going to be a little bit big for this here, but just so you can see, they really like to hide in these. It makes them feel comfortable. They are an arboreal gecko, meaning that they will be up in treetops and other tall places, so they like to climb, and they love these to hide in. This is going to be one of their favorite hiding spots. So you can also provide different vines, you can provide different logs, tree branches, stuff like that. Just make sure it's all clean and cured, nothing with outside contaminants, so don't take anything out of your backyard and put it right into your tank. That can lead to some issues. So, these guys come in all different sizes and shapes and morphs. So females do tend to get a little bit bigger than males. This one here is a male again, and this is going to be a yellow Dalmatian. As you can tell, he's got some yellow colors, and he's got all these little black spots right over his head and through his body, and those are what make him a Dalmatian. Now there's a ton of different other types of morphs. There's like creams, which are going to have a very bright white kind of color to them. There's tigers, which have like tiger stripes running down their sides. There's harlequins, which are going to be a nice dark color on the outside with like a lighter or a different color down their back. So they come in all different types. There's like reds and yellows, like I said. There's a ton of different things that you can do with these guys, and they're probably one of the easiest geckos you can take care of. They can stay right at room temperature as long as your house stays between about 71 and 77 degrees. I don't recommend going any lower on temp than that for them. That can lead to some issues, but they don't need UVB lighting or anything like that. They're very, very nice geckos, very easy to take care of. The only real requirement they need is they need to stay around 60 to 70% humidity. Alright, that's all I have on these guys. Thanks for watching.
I'm Brian. I'm here to show you around our saltwater department. This right here is our 400-gallon saltwater fish display. The red tail or sargassum trigger. I have a green filefish right here. I have right there a zebra swallowtail angel, a majestic angel, and our purple tang. We have flippers and flappers, our blue dot stingrays. Then I have back there, if you can see them, our harlequin tusk, and above him we got a foxface. So right now I'm going to feed all these guys. They're eating clams on a half shell, and enjoy. Hi everyone, this is our SEA REEFER aquarium. It's going to be our mixed aquarium, which that means that it has different species of corals ranging from SPS corals, LPS corals, and soft corals. In SPS corals, it's really easy to determine that because they have small polyp stony corals. So when you zoom in on a SPS coral, you can kind of see very small polyps, little like dots of color on their actual coral. For LPS corals, you'll see large polyp stony corals. That's a lot easier to see because on Euphyllia, like a hammer coral, you can see branches, which each branch has its own large polyp on the actual coral. And then when you go to soft corals, like a mushroom, you can see that there's not any stony surface on it. It's simply just a membrane of water, no stone at all. So on the topic of corals being animals, not plants, an anemone is a good example. Anemones actually have even a foot where they can move themselves around your aquarium or anywhere they want. And also on a lot of these corals, you'll notice something called a polyp. A polyp is right here, where you have this green coral on its skeleton, but then you have these brown or orange polyps. There's actually an organism living inside of the coral that filter feeds through the water column and brings nutrients and helps the coral grow. So this right here is a chocolate chip starfish. As you can see right here, little feet in these lines right here underneath its body, those are called tube feet. That's what the starfish uses to move itself around. So the starfish will bring water in through this part of its body right here on the top called the madrepore, and it will bring water to these little tube feet that will allow it to, almost like a suction cup, stick on glass, rocks, anything like that. And that's how starfish move around.
Alright, for our saltwater fish collection that we have here, we have some regular clownfish, or you would know it as Nemo. We also have a little dory in there. Another purple and yellow fish, which would be our royal drama. But what we're gonna focus on today is our clownfish. We have quite a variety. We got our regular ones here, and then we have some more that we'll show you in a bit. Okay, so these will be our black ice clownfish, and then right next to those are going to be our black clownfish. And then above that we will have our gladiators. And really just the difference between all these, they're the same fish, just different coloration on them, different design.
Another cool part about our fish section here at Bluefish is our eel collection. So right here I have a zebra moray eel, really cool. Another real cool eel is this tessellata or honeycomb eel. These guys are probably the biggest eel that we carry. They get about 4 to 5 feet long. And as you can see, he's getting pretty close to that size. It's very large. So right here is our seahorse tank. The best way to keep seahorses in an aquarium is to have a low flow environment for them, because seahorses struggle to move around in a tank with a lot of flow. As you can see, you also need a lot of plants or different type of decor for the seahorses to wrap their tails around. See right there how they wrap their tails around to keep themselves stable instead of getting swept away by the flow. Seahorses need to eat 3 times a day, and as you can see, they're gonna go and kind of hunt for their food. Right here is just frozen shrimp. Thank you for joining us on our virtual walkthrough of Bluefish Aquarium. Hope to see you soon.